Hi there, and thank you for tuning in to The Social Circus, where every week we dive into a variety of topics covering social media, mindset, and how to run your business. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to episode 137 of The Social Circus. Now, today's episode has got a really fun title, and I should just share with you. We use AI a lot in my podcast. We use it to help edit it, improve the sound quality, to help us with our show notes and our social media posts. But one of the jobs that I do love to do is I love to give the episode its name. And sometimes my husband will give me the AI choices and say, do you think these ones are better? And sometimes they are. But today's episode is called Starting Now is Totally Fine. Now, today, if you're listening to this as it dropped, today is Wednesday, the 29th of January, 2025. And this means that January is almost over and we're essentially about to start the second month of the year. And the reason I wanted to talk about starting now is fine is because for so many of us, January is a blur and we often start, like New Year's Eve and we set goals and we have so much excitement about the year ahead. And then we forget, particularly here in Australia, that we have lots of public holidays. We come off the back of Christmas, New Year, and then of course in Australia, we also have Australia Day as a public holiday as well. Layered on top of that, many of us take annual leave to make the most of those. So we might run a business, but we might have a partner that takes annual leave. It's a beautiful time of year to go away because it's summer. And then add into the chaos and the mix. If you are a parent or you look after children, you also have the endless summer holidays that seem to go on and on forever. And for many of us, this week is the week that school has resumed. Now, I have to say, I feel a little bit envious of you all because I was a school mum for 14 years and now my babies are out in the world doing their thing. And this is my first time in 14 years that I have not had to prepare for back to school. And can I just say, it's very interesting how quickly your life adapts to a different routine. Like my brain, and I've had friends doing busy back to school and sorting uniforms and books and all of those things. And meanwhile, I'm just getting on and living my best life, not doing that anymore. But the reason I want to talk about that is because one of the main reasons I started with my business was because my children were really young. So I started my business in March, it will be 14 years, and my youngest son is 16. So I started when they were quite small. They were actually 3 and 5, and they are now 16 and about to turn 17 and 19. So I started when I had to try and juggle. Well, my youngest wasn't even at school. He was still at daycare and then he was at kindy and all of the chaos of kindy. And I have weathered all of those things with running my own business. So I have an intimate understanding of what it takes to start your business in January with lots of excitement, lots of goals, and then realize that I still have to actually do this parenting business, which is very demanding. And as much as we'd like to stick our kids in front of a screen for 10 hours, they tend to go a bit kind of doolally after about 2 or 3 hours. So we take them out and we do lots of fun things with them. And this means that we are creating beautiful memories, but we're probably not getting done in our business what we would like to get done. So as I said, this year is a different year for me. My oldest son is at university and he's obviously on summer vacay, but he's working with his brother. And my youngest son, who we left school last year to pursue work in construction, is doing a traineeship. So we call him Baby Tradie. So my 2 boys are currently working full time, and all my job is to make sure there is like a ton of food, preferably something high in protein, apparently, in the fridge. And by and large, they are independent functioning adults. So I have done my job correctly as a parent and got them out into the world. But I also know that for many, many years, I was helping them with their school uniforms, helping them get organized in the morning, helping them plan their lunches, picking them up from school, taking them to 7,000 after school activities. I feel you if that is you. And I also remember how incredibly exhausting it was trying to do all of the things. So first of all, I want to start today's podcast episode by saying, if January has been completely hijacked by family, different events, whatever it is, please don't sit there and berate yourself about it. Please don't give yourself a hard time and go, this year was going to be different and already January is over and I haven't even started working on my business. I haven't done my goals. I haven't done anything like that. The worst thing that we can do to ourselves when we're running a business is be mean, okay? When we are mean to ourselves and when we criticize ourselves and when we kind of come down and go, this isn't how I wanted this year to go, and already it's off to a bad start. All that does is put some negativity into our heads, make us feel like a failure, and make us feel like, well, I'm not going to get anything done, so why do I even bother? All that kind of spiraling thoughts and processes goes on in our heads. So I really want to start by saying, if you're listening to this podcast and going, I've done nothing or minimal in January, I'm giving permission for you to say that is absolutely fine. And the reason I told you a little bit about my children is the goals that my husband and I had around starting our business, which is nearly 14 years ago, was to be present for our sons. It was to be able to walk them to school and to pick them up from school. It was to go to school assembly and take them to, both my boys were competitive swimmers, so endless swimming before and after school. And I want you to hear this, and I want you to hear this now, because I am through the other side of that. And I think that my husband and I have done an amazing job of being present. Were there picking up from school when they were little. We would walk them home. We were there and available. Okay. And so I look back and think that I might not have been as financially successful as I think that I could have been. And I'm sure I could have been particularly if I didn't have the balancing with my family. But I want you to know this. Your children don't remember if you pick them up every single day. Okay. If you were to ask yourself right now, can you remember when you were, say, whatever child you is, let's say they're 8 or 10, can you remember a particular memory with your parents from when you're 8 or 10? The answer is probably no. Okay. So I want you to just realize that if your goal was to pick your children up from school, but for some reason 2 days a week, your business doesn't allow that and you have to take them to after school care or have someone help you with that, your children are not going to remember that. They're going to remember the times that you're there. So when you are there, try and be present if you can. And if you can't, then use other things that will allow you to be more present later, okay? I think by and large, my husband picked up our kids a really big chunk of the time, but I also want you to know our school had after-school activities where we didn't have to pick them up till 4:30 many days. I also have my mum who lives locally to me who would happily pick my children up any day that I wanted. And I had lots of flexibility that has supported me with that. So I want you to know that I was never a perfect parent. I never dropped my kids off and picked them up every day. I never was off work the entire school holidays, okay? So first thing I want you to do is let go of that idea of perfection and what do you think you need to do to show up, okay? Because mostly we're unreasonable and mostly we're thinking I either have to be hopeless or perfect. And let me tell you, I am a great parent and I did a great job, my husband and I, of being present with our children, but we weren't there every minute of every occasion, every time. So I want you to hear that and know that it is completely fine to do that. I also want you to think about what would feel great for you and to set some goals and expectations around that. So I know that in January, December, we do goal setting with our business, but I want you to think about what would goal setting look like for your personal life. So if perhaps like last year you were juggling school and it was like, well, it's really hard to do pick up every day. Perhaps I can look at my child getting home from school on their own if they're a little bit older. Perhaps I can look at sharing with another parent so they pick up one day, you pick up another, and you can have them for a play date. All of that kind of flexibility. And I want you to ask yourself, what would success look like for you? And please don't say 5 mornings and 5 afternoons of drop off and pick up. I think that 2 to 3 is fantastic. And can I tell you, as the child of a single working mother, and I know my mum doesn't listen to this, I can say this, she never walked us to school. We grew up in country towns, so we tended to walk to school I walked with my older brother from a very young age, like I was about 7. She never picked us up. She was a teacher herself, so she never came to assemblies because she was teaching and she missed lots of things. But do you know what? She was a great mum and I have lots of great memories of her as a child. So please be reasonable about what you're asking of yourself and set those expectations. If you're lucky enough to have, like I am, and have a partner, ask them what they think would be great and ask them what they might be able to give in terms of flexibility and help and support, okay? So I want you to kind of ask yourself, what does that look and feel like for you this year? Because we cannot do it all and we cannot grow successful businesses if we are putting ourselves under pressure all the time to be present and be this perfect version of a parent, for example. So I want you to ask yourself, what would it look and feel like to be successful? And I think 2 to 3 days a week is fantastic. That's my values. So I'm just sharing that with you. I definitely feel like I did that most of the time. I also want you to think about, what do you want to achieve for this year and how many days do you have available to do that? So, for many of the years that my kids were at school, I worked school hours. Now, I want to be really clear and say you can work as many hours as you want, but eventually you will burn out. And what you need to learn is, how do you work best? So, anyone who knows me knows, do not ring me at 5 o'clock and talk about work. I am a total morning bird every day of the week. I will happily wake up 4:35 a.m. I will happily go to the gym. I will do a couple of hours work, and I have always done this before my children went to school. So mostly they'd be up at 7, we'd be getting them organized. And so by 7, I can have done 2 hours work for my day. And then I happily worked school hours. And then when my children got home from school, because I've started early, I used to happily clock off at 3 p.m. Okay. So I also want you to consider, what would your day look like if you could structure it ideally for yourself? Bearing in mind that how many hours we work will have an impact on how much money we can make. So keep that in mind. So if you only want to work during school hours, then temper what you want to do around that. If you can get up early, or go you, if you can work late, if you're a night owl, I want you to think about what those hours look like and ask yourself, what needs to get done and how many hours does that take? Now, I've had people comment to me for a very long time that I am very motivated and focused person. And to be fair, I came from working in corporate marketing, which was always very deadline driven, juggling lots of projects and having to keep pushing things ahead very quickly, which I think is incredible training for running your own small business. I will say that. But here's what I want you to think about when you're considering your day and your structure is, have I set myself up for success? Have I set too many things for me to do that aren't reasonable? And if I have 30 hours a week and I spend 10 of that putting up social media posts, I only have 20 hours a week to sell, work with clients, convert, all of those kind of things. All right. So please have a look at your time, do an analysis of how much time you have, and think about, is that going to be reasonable? If I have said to myself, my goal this year is to grow my business to $1 million business, which is totally achievable, by the way. What does that mean I need to commit to my time? Okay, because I think that often there's a disconnect between our goals and our capacity. Now, obviously, the missing factor in that is if we have the finances and capability to outsource, and that can be really helpful in helping us grow. But you still need to know what time things take so that you can allow and factor in that additional help and support that you need inside your business. So let's talk about starting in February and starting with kindness and compassion. Because if you are listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, actually, I am just starting now, a really good place to start is to, one, think about what those goals are around your family, and particularly if you want to be present for your children, think about what that looks like and talk to your partner if you have one, or if you have people that can help and support you, that would be ideal. So have those conversations. I then want you to break down your day and your week to how much time you have available. So if you're a crazy woman like me, you want to get up at 5 and do 2 hours work before the household gets up, and then work 6 hours in the day, that's an 8-hour day. Times it by 5 gives me a 40-hour week. Perfect. What then do the other tasks that I would like to get done in that time, what's going to have to give, and what else can I let go to achieve that? Now, I am a regular gym goer. I love doing long walks and hikes on the weekends, and I have lots of capacity now my children are older. But I also want you to know that behind the scenes, a whole lot of stuff doesn't get done in my house. So I was really lucky in the one way, when my boys were competitive swimmers, which they were for many years when they were younger, our family never ate dinner together. Because the kids were coming and going from swimming and they needed feeding all the time. So I got really heavily into batch cooking when they were young. And they would just pull something out of the freezer and they would warm it up and that would be their dinner. So I still batch cook now because I actually don't like cooking. It doesn't light me up. And everyone now is conditioned to treating it like a restaurant of what can I eat tonight? I don't feel like eating what anyone else is eating. So I do that, and my family consider it to be very normal to pull dinner out of the freezer and to have something that I cooked at another point that they, that makes them happy and they want to do that. So that is something that I'm totally fine with. Your household might be different, but I also want you to be reasonable about what can you do. if you get like lots of joy from cooking for your family, then factor that into your time and what that will look like, because you're obviously not going to cook a big, beautiful dinner and then sit down afterwards and probably work. Well, I certainly wouldn't be. You may be. So I want you to think about, how would you spend your time and how would that be productive and how would it feel? And I also want you to think about, what else can you let go? Okay. Now, excitingly, I have raised my 2 sons with my husband and nobody has died, because things can be let go and it does not matter. And I always say this is, if something went wrong, I'm like, well, nobody died, so it's okay. All right. And that's the truth of so many things. Like, you can come to my house and very rarely will it be super clean and tidy. And it's just because it's not really important to me. It's not an issue if my house isn't immaculate. I like it to be organized, and particularly like my office to be organized. But aside from that, everything can be okay. Now, we do run with a nice little routine, but I also want you to know that you can let things go. Like, honestly, our house gets cleaned once a week, sometimes once a fortnight. And it's okay, because nobody died. And some days I try and do a load of washing every day, and my husband and I have a little routine with that, but sometimes it doesn't happen. And some weekends that washing machine doesn't go off and it's crazy because the kids are bringing stuff and they're doing their washing. It's all okay. But what I'm really suggesting to you is to let go of the pressure and expectation, because you're going to be building your business this year, okay? And so you have to let go of some of the things that you think are important and ask yourself, if I spend an hour tidying my kitchen, yes, you're going to feel better. But what's the opportunity cost of that? Like, could I be working in my business? Could I be doing that? Now, again, for many years in my business, I have intentionally ran a lot of my household tasks in 5-minute increments. So I use what's called the Pomodoro technique, which is simply a Spanish word for tomato. And if you Google tomato timer, there are so many tomato timers, and I love them because they allow you to work in little short sprints of like 20, 30 or 40 minutes. And every time you end a sprint, you take a 5-minute break. And in that 5-minute break, I jump up and do a little task around my home to keep my home running. Now, interestingly, you can get lots done in those little 5-minute sprints, and you can get to the end of the day and have been really productive, and also look around and your house isn't in complete chaos. So remember, you don't have to allocate big swathes of time to doing household tasks. Those little 5-minute sprints can keep you really tidy and organized. And I want you to think about, can I do that and can I make it work better? All right. So, if we don't have the capacity to outsource and bring in more help into our home, that's okay. But you can give yourself a little break in terms of how much time you're spending doing those tasks, if that isn't really the best use of your time. Now, if you are starting now, it's okay. I want to reassure you, you haven't lost 1 month's worth of income, and you're not behind the 8 ball, and you're not going to struggle for the rest of the year catching up, unless you tell yourself that that's what's going to happen. Because remember, what we think is really, really important to the actions that we create. So if you're going to constantly berate yourself about the fact that you lost a month, that you didn't get anything done, that you missed your first lot of goals, all of that is going to have a detrimental impact on you. Instead, what I would like you to do is think about, I'm starting now, and these are the goals that I want to achieve, and I want to break them up into, what am I going to get done in February? And let's start now, and let's be kind and compassionate to ourselves, and to move into our year with that same exciting energy that potentially we had on New Year's Eve. So if you felt that excitement around New Year's Eve and that kind of, oh, it's a new year ahead, full of all of that fresh energy and all of those kind of new vibe feels, I want you to spend a moment trying to reconnect with that and go, how did it feel? I was so excited. I felt really positive and optimistic, and this is how I felt. I want you to sit with those feelings a little bit and remind yourself that at what's the Chinese New Year, we're hitting that imminently, and remind yourself that it's okay to start now, and to start setting your goals now, to set your intentions, to work out what is the breakdown of that, as in, how am I going to spend my time and what is that going to look like? Because the reasons that we start our businesses are so often to do with improving our quality of life, our work-life balance, if you want to call it that, the time that we spend with our family, the time that we spend at home and not commuting. All of those reasons, we need to hang on to those and remind ourselves that we can make those happen if we are kind with ourselves and if we let things go. All right? You cannot do everything. Okay? There is just no way you can. And if you gave it a red hot go, then the answer to what does that look like in a few months' time is burnout. And then you will be able to do very little And it's probably going to take you a good chunk of time to dig yourself out of that burnout rut that you have created. So please, if you are starting now, think about how you can ease yourself back into those new year feels. Remember that fresh and exciting energy that you felt about the new year ahead, and be really kind to yourself about how you're going to go into this year and what is that going to look and feel like for your business. Because I'm so excited for this year ahead and I know that it's going to go well. But I didn't have a brilliant January. I actually took a load of time off. I got lots of tasks done. I had a very big to-do list when I was having non-contact time in my business, but I didn't get everything done. I want to be really, really clear about that. My to-do list was huge, and I would say I probably got 75% of it done. And I feel really enthused about January and the start that I've had to the year. But I also know that I 100% could have done better. I could have done more. I could have stretched myself more. But one of the things that I did do is I do an end of month reflection, and I tend to do it just before I do goal setting with my mastermind ladies. And one of the things I wrote in that I achieved is that I had a slow start to the year. And what I mean by that is I didn't rush in, and I'm very full throttle. I'm very high energy, and I can be incredibly productive. And one of the things I want to take into this year is to be more aware of my time and my energy, and to not feel like I have to always get everything on my to-do list done. So, getting 75% of things done on my to-do list is amazing, and I need to acknowledge that. And so I actually wrote in my journal that I had a slow start and that felt really expansive because it gave me the bandwidth to think about things. So I want you to think about all of what I've put to you today. And I'm going to close up by doing a little sell, which I don't normally do. But I know that for many of you, if you have big plans for 2025 and you want to get out there, be more visible, and to start using social media to sell, then I have got a live round of my online course, Sell with Socials, starting next Monday, the 3rd of February. Now, this is going to be a live round that goes over 30 days, and I'm going to give you 30 actions for you to step up, show up on social media, and start learning strategies, not just about posting on social media, but how do you actually sell on social media. So if you're not sure about how to learn more about my course, you can go to my website. Under online courses, there's one called Sell with Socials. The links will be in my show notes to connect to that page. And if you happen to be catching this on another platform, it's really, really easy to find it. If you just go onlinesocialbutterfly.com.au/SWS, it will take you to the page for Sell with Socials. And if you sign up before the live round, you can actually get a really nice discount to get you up and running to start the year ahead. I also have a lovely long payment plan. And on top of all that, I have a money back guarantee. So if you sign up for Sell with Socials, you don't make a sale during the 30 days, I will refund you the money on the cost of the course. So that is my final little pitch for you. I promise I won't do long intro sells because I hear people on podcasts take about 12 minutes and I'm like, can we get to the podcast already? But I do want you to hear about Sell with Socials because I truly love it as a course. I love delivering it as a live round because it helps keep you accountable, motivated, and supported to show up and start selling using social media. So I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast episode. I hope you feel better about wherever you are starting out right now in your business and in the 2025 new year. And I'm really looking forward to what the year ahead is going to hold for you. Remember, the best way that we can achieve our goals is to approach ourselves with kindness and compassion. So keep that in mind. It's going to be a fantastic year, but we're going to be kind to ourselves about what we get done. So here's to a great year ahead. And as always, to my beautiful listeners, thank you so much for tuning into the Social Circus. I always appreciate you as my listeners. If you can take a moment to subscribe on the platform that you're listening in, that would be fantastic. And if you love me, leave me a review. They always help other listeners find my podcast. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I will catch you the same time next week on the Social Circus. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Social Circus. As your host, Sarah Thomson, I am thrilled that you've chosen to spend your time hanging out with me. I would be so grateful if you could spare an extra moment to go and leave me a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you even felt more excited, you could share my podcast with your friends who you think would get great value from it. Thanks so much again for tuning in.